Hello everyone and welcome back to Game Week 1 of the 25-26 Slater and Gordon Championship, live from the Lee Westwood Sports Centre, where you join myself, Ryan Sipple, once again alongside Rick and Shah for the third game of the day. On Court B, it will be contested between Nottingham Forest and Teesside Steel. Let's go through the squads quickly, and then myself and Rickin will preview these two's form coming into the new campaign. Nottingham Forest have Gary Meakin, Jack Bosanquet, Toby Maurice, Riley Priestley, Finley Cooper, Ben Rogers and Sam Rogers. And Teesside Steel are comprised of the familiar five: Charlie Connolly, Jamil Khan, Thomas Met, Isaac Murray and Oscar Mulgrew. A lot of eager eyes watching this one to see how a real title contender does. They were almost faultless in the 24-25 campaign, Teesside Steel. Can they emulate? Can they replicate? Can they go that step further to gain automatic promotion, or maybe even lift the ultimate prize? Rickin, give me your thoughts on this fixture. You would probably say a tale of two ends of the table.
Yeah, Teesside still done very well last season. Had they converted some of those draws into wins, you know, you're looking at an automatic promotion place straight away. They're only a few points off getting that automatic promotion place. I think they only lost one game last season apart from the playoff. So you would think that this would be very one-sided. But football's a funny sport. Results can go with the underdog. We have seen that recently in the Nations League with Belgium and Italy securing that World Cup place. So it should be a good game.
Yeah, I agree. I have tipped Teesside Steel to go on and be crowned champions. I did caveat that in a recent podcast to say that it would need the consistency of Owen Swift being available for selection. That doesn't look as if it is the case for Game Week 1. But there is quality in that team, probably too much for the likes of Nottingham Forest. But when you get into the conversation about the Nottinghamshires and the Villa Rockets Lions, whether or not that core squad of five has enough to perform consistently across the 22 league games. Just a quick thank you to Slater and Gordon, the new sponsors of the 25-26 National League, encapsulating both the Premiership and the Championship. They've already been instrumental in supporting the WFA. Earlier in 2025, we was named their Charity of the Year. They have been so key in supporting the WFA Benevolent Fund. They've supported and sponsored our end of season awards, and now they're taking on sponsorship of the league itself. And of course, all of our streams, comms and podcasts are powered by MK Battery. So a huge thank you to them as well. Ian Harley is our central referee and has the captains in, Ben Rogers and Oscar Mulgrew. The question with Forest has always been about consistency, both in terms of results and squad. And I wonder whether they've found that setup that just means they'll turn those tight losses and draws into wins. One thing that's worth noting, I can't see any substitutes for either side, which is interesting. And if that is the case, both of these will have to play out their opening fixture of the season with the four players they have present. How that will play out, we will have to wait But the squads, as they start, it's Toby Maurice, Ben Rogers, Riley Priestley and Finley Cooper for Forest, and Teesside Steel, Isaac Murray, Oscar Mulgrew. They have Charlie Connolly and Jamil Khan. I can only suspect that Thomas Met has failed the speed test. We'll try and get confirmation of that ASAP. But thank you to everyone that's tuning in. As always, get your predictions and comments into the YouTube chat. And we are officially underway. Ben Rogers straight into Finley Cooper, looking to entice them out of their shape. Oscar Mulgrew down to Charlie Connolly. Finley Cooper, pick off back to Ben Rogers. Probably needed to go back to Finley Cooper there. Oscar Mulgrew completely read the intended target of Riley Priestley. How good is this Teesside Steel team, Rickin, when you faced them last season?
Yeah, they're very good, very solid. You know, they can pass the ball around, they generate power. The accuracy is always there with Jamil. Oscar Mulgrew is very good in the centre as well. And then, like Dean Williams says, the poacher on the back post.
Well, he's not present at the moment. Thomas Met. I can see him in the hallway out near the speed test machine. So if a team such as Forest is going to capitalise and get the better of Teesside Steel, it's when they've got selection headaches. But as mentioned, Forest have no one present. If they wish to switch things up on a player basis or tactically, Ben Rogers tries to weave his way up the court, met by Jamil Khan. Something you will observe is a very fluid system adopted by Teesside, whereby at any one time it could be either Jamil Khan or Oscar Mulgrew in the centre. Something that I'm sure all of those players will attest to is their game and their confidence has grown significantly in the last 12-18 months, and it's no coincidence that that has coincided them training with Teesside from the Premiership, the likes of Tyler Reeve and Ed Common, as Oscar Mulgrew gets his first eye of goal. And we saw what Teesside did in the Premiership last season, stormed to their first ever National League title. So the influence and impact it has on these players cannot be understated, as Oscar Mulgrew just tries to angle it off his chair and sensibly left by Riley Priestley. It certainly looked as if it came off a Teesside Steel chair last. And there's appeals from Riley Priestley, and I can probably understand them.
They look very strong defensively for us in the first 3 minutes.
Obviously, it's a very long game, but that's what they need to build their performances on, a solid foundation. We see some of the top teams in the country, Premiership and Championship, be really defensive, and they're going to capitalise now on Teesside Steel, committing players forward. And almost out of nowhere, it's the first real territory they had in the half of Teesside Steel, and they've punished them.
Yeah, we just mentioned it, that they needed to build on that defensive structure, and they have. And the coach, Graham Mulgrew, is shell-shocked at the moment.
No, absolutely brilliant. Riley Priestley, I think, got 7 goals last season, all of which came within one game in Gameweek One. A remarkable statistic, and following that, he just wasn't able to find the net. But he has replicated what he did in 2024-25, getting off the mark in the first game, and that's a fantastic start for the season for Nottingham Forest. And they lead Teesside Steel by 1-0. I love the fact that Toby Maurice is back playing football in the National League. Solid goalkeeper, and if he can get that real connection with Ben Rogers, there is no reason why this Nottingham Forest side can't go on to achieve good things. Maybe not got the calibre of player or squad depth to really mount any sort of charge towards the summit, but this is a team that's finished bottom, I think, in 2 or 3 of the last seasons. So I think their ultimate aspiration will be just being safe, maybe a mid-table finish. I think they'd probably snap your hand off for that. There's few tougher starts to the season than Teesside still, but after 5 minutes, they look really comfortable.
They definitely do. I think Teesside look a bit shocked at the moment. They did not expect this coming into the game.
I have said in the past that Ben Rogers is absolutely central to Nottingham Forest, and their performances tend to hinge on his influence in a game. Ben Rogers, Riley Priestley and Finlay Cooper have all been present on the FA's Regional Emergent Talent Programme. I know they have quality, they have talent. How that has manifested in kind of a team performance is what's let them down, but if they can turn that individual talent into team ability, there is no question as to what they can achieve. As Ben Rogers just apologises to Jamil Khan.
Yeah, he was instructing Priestley. He was telling him where to be a few moments ago, commanding that central position.
Rogers into Finlay Cooper, just trying to get the angle to locate the alternate winger in Riley Priestley, but Teesside still just haven't been able to impart their quality at all, being completely nullified in this opening 7 minutes. This is when I go back to the question and caveat of squad depth, needing Thomas Met to be firing, need Owen Swift to be available if they're going to mount a title charge. You would still say they have more than enough to get back into this game, but across the entirety of the season, that's a different conversation. Oscar Mulgrew strikes the ball out to Jamil Khan. Trying to find the gap between Rogers and Maurice. Contact from the Teesside Steel number 4 and Nottingham Forest come away with a free kick.
You know, the first quarter of this half, Nottingham Forest have done very well. I think they would have taken this if you'd asked them this at the start of the game.
I think a goal against Teesside Steel, they would have snapped your arm off. So, no, really positive. As you can see, Nottinghamshire 2-0 up against Hull and East Yorkshire on Court A. Another team many have regarded as title prospects due to their relegation from the Premiership. Almost unjustified relegation from the Premiership, but the top flight was so competitive last season that it was always going to mean that a team that feels they're a Premiership mainstay was going to drop down into this second division. But it's exciting to see the likes of them compete and really impress.
I would have given that the other way.
Jamil Khan. Charlie Connolly. Switch of play. Ben Rogers distributes really well. That just needed that bit of connection from Riley Priestley because Finlay Cooper was set away. Now he's a little bit too advanced. They're looking to break. They're brave. They're committing their wingers high and wide. And something that, if and when I've worked with them in a coaching capacity, I've said about the necessity of staying in reverse, aiding your visibility and your decision making, and they're doing that really well. It's just a question of sharpness, which will come as the games progress across the season. Really promising signs from Nottingham Forest.
100%. You're absolutely right, Ryan.
Good save from Toby Maurice. And they are really frustrating Teesside still.
There was an opportunity there for Teesside still. You would have thought with their quality they would have capitalised on that.
It's a risky back pass from Finley Cooper there. I think they just took that goal kick, or free kick, sorry, a little bit too quickly, and now they're having to defend. Just a little bit of patience as, again, Riley Priestley doesn't get the angle. Just gifting possession back to Oscar Mulgrew. It's a nice pass. Jamil Khan strikes the ball just wide of the left-hand post. But all of that stemmed from almost Nottingham Forest mistakes. If you give them chances, they will punish you. It's a lovely initial pass from Oscar Mulgrew out to Jamil Khan. And look, they're switching things up now. Teesside still. Isaac Murray now takes off that goalkeeper jersey and it will be put on the shoulders of Charlie Connolly. So they acknowledge it's not going their way. And for them to be posed these questions so early in the season, they're going to have a real assessment following this.
He's played very well today, Ben Rogers. The way that he's distributed that ball to Priestley and trying to get it to Cooper as well.
Ben Rogers is a fantastic player. But because Nottingham Forest have typically always been a very defensive side, they haven't necessarily been too proficient in terms of attack. It doesn't showcase the best of his ability, but something that he's looking to shift and change the narrative of, certainly in this opening half. Hope it's a reoccurring thing across the season, because if they have this sort of success against a team that went 19 unbeaten last season, I think they had one of the longest unbeaten spells in the entire National League, which encapsulates the Premiership as well. Imagine what you're like against the more similarly matched opponents. I will admit, when doing the predictions as to where teams would finish in the 25-26 Championship, I had Nottingham Forest finishing bottom as Oscar Mulgrew finally finds a way through and manages to find the equaliser. It's Nottingham Forest 1, Teesside still 1.
He looks angry, Mulgrew. He's not happy with the result. He's got his side back into the game, but I think he wants more from the performances.
We're back underway. Again, I don't read a great deal into that equaliser. I think Nottingham Forest, that's a strange decision from Oscar Mulgrew. I think he assumed that it was going to go wide of that left-hand post, and in doing so he had to guide it away from the post at the very last second. And now Nottingham Forest almost gifted a corner to be taken by Ben Rogers, who's communicating his intentions with Riley Priestley. He looks the intended target. Finley Cooper well marked at the back post into Riley Priestley, attacks it with his front bumper. Ben Rogers just can't get out of the way in time. But really positive nonetheless. Toby Maurice That's a dangerous ball, that, from Ben Rogers. That was millimetres away from connecting with the front bumper of Jamil Khan. Had it done so, it would have almost certainly seen Teesside Steel go to the good. Great half of football, you'd say, Rickin.
Yeah, it's been very good, very close. Yeah, would not have expected this at all at the start.
Again, Ben Rogers needs to be careful there. I know it's a good effort and he's going to get a round of applause, but he needs to be careful of that oncoming central player, because if he doesn't have 100% accuracy, what looks like a promising attack will turn into an immediate defence and put pressure on his goalkeeper. But these are small margins. He's yet to get one wrong. Around 4 minutes left of this first half. Forest 1, Teesside Steel 1.
He was unlucky not to get a good connection there.
Same with Finley Cooper, millimetres away from that connection, which would have surely set away Riley Priestley.
If Cooper could have angled that pass over to Priestley, Priestley was open for a shot at goal there.
Yeah, exactly. Isaac Murray just can't get connection with it. You've got to give him somewhat of a grace period. It's not often you see him played in a attacking role. I think pretty much exclusively last season he wore the goalkeeper jersey, and that's what they have to be careful of. Toby Maurice completely unaware as to the ball's placement. Fortunately for him, he was placed well enough to prevent Jamil Khan from scoring. And there's just little lapses in concentration, relatively speaking, I must stress. Teesside Steel are growing into this game, but I think we always suspected that Forest would get chances on the break. Again, that's a strange decision from Ben Rogers. It was so congested in that area, it almost gives possession back to Nottingham Forest. For Teesside Steel, you'd probably just say it's just missing that bit of quality that we've come to expect.
Yeah, I think they need to have a discussion at half time, see what they can change. But if you're Forest, you're going into half time, 2 minutes to go, very happy.
Yeah, good work from Riley Priestley there, just to block Oscar Mulgrew. Certainly the standards that he hit and set last season, Oscar Mulgrew hasn't quite found a rhythm in this game. Does well to pick out Isaac Murray. Likewise, Jamil Khan engages it with a 180. That is a beautiful goal. Gets a round of applause from Graham Mulgrew. And that's the quality we talk about. It doesn't always go their way, but they can break and do so clinically. It was the exchange passes with Oscar Mulgrew and Isaac Murray out to Jamil Khan, who just patiently waited, and Toby Maurice was little more than a bystander to watch that go over his goal. A minute and a half before the half-time break, Teesside Steel finally have their lead.
There must be something with this court, Ryan. We saw earlier today a team come back from being 1-0 down. Our Teesside are going to do the same.
Yeah, absolutely. Already it's fascinating to see these storylines play out. The fact that we're seeing opposition come from behind to regain leads or establish leads. It speaks to the competitiveness of the division. Final 10 seconds of the first half. Finlay Cooper now with a potential break on. A strange engagement that. He almost needed to go the complete other way. Decision goes in favour of Teesside still. Looks as if it will go into the break. Nottingham Forest 1, Teesside still 2. A great 20-minute half. Nottingham Forest shocked the title prospects early on. And then since that, Teesside still have grown in confidence. They're starting to find their rhythm. Still haven't hit the heights we've come to expect, but it's almost irrelevant if they come away with the 3 points. Isaac Murray trying to force it out to Oscar Mulgrew, and Ian Harley blows the whistle to signal half-time. A great half of football, which sees Teesside still a goal up against Forest. Join myself and Rickin for the second half shortly. Hello everyone and welcome back. Second half in this fixture between Nottingham Forest and Teesside Steel. A fantastic opening 20 minutes which saw Nottingham Forest go a goal to the good to shock the title contenders Teesside Steel, but following that they started to grow in confidence, started to get a little bit more sharp in attack, capitalising on a few mistakes in the Forest defence, and they have got a 1-goal advantage. Thomas Met has been introduced to the action, so I can only suspect that he failed the speed test prior to the game starting. He's retested since, so he will now feature in the second, which probably gives them a little bit more dynamism in the wide areas, and you would expect, based on relative expectation, Teesside Steel will just find another level now. They've put Isaac Murray back in goal in his familiar position, and this is the team that saw them command so many scorelines in 24-25. It's confirmation of that substitute. Off comes Charlie Connolly. Out to Riley Priestley. Thomas Met with his first touch of the new season puts it into the path of Oscar Mulgrew. A good first engagement. It needed Ben Rogers to track the whole width of the court to prevent that 180.
It looks like they've started to click right now.
Yeah, it was only a matter of time. It started to find pace, and Thomas Met is going to have a sight at goal here. Doesn't quite have the connection needed to trouble the Forest defence, but the initial delivery from Jamil Khan, who many have tipped to be one of the top creators of the 25-26 Slater and Gordon Championship. Thomas Met always looks to better his goal tally from the season before. I think he finished on 10 or 11 last season, so no doubt 12 plus is the target. But beyond the result, beyond the scoreline, so encouraged with what I've seen from Nottingham Forest, who have not shied away. Look how brave they're being. Ben Rogers in that central position, how high and wide their wingers are. It would be almost acceptable and understandable for them to play a very defensive formation where one of those two wingers contributes in defence and it isolates maybe Finley Cooper up the court, but they're looking to take this game to Teesside Steel, and that's an evolution from their game from last season. Again, I'd have to understand the lack of depth in the squad, no substitutes available at their disposal, so assuming that that is addressed in following games, they could be a real surprise package as it can force Toby Maurice into a save. Just takes it out the path of Thomas Met. It's a real skill in itself to do that.
Yeah, with the pace of the ball being so fast, you just don't know where it's going to bounce. It's very hard to control. But in reference to your point, Ryan, about Nottingham Forest playing well, you can definitely see them improving on last season. 11th place finish.
Yeah, shame there that they were undone. Look how wide and expansive Teesside Steel would be. And Oscar Mulgrew into the path of Jamil Khan to make it 3. A fantastic goal. And that is more like the Teesside Steel we've come to expect. Jamil Khan with another goal. Oscar Mulgrew with the assist. And now they're turning on the style. Forest 1, Teesside Steel 3. Strong commands from Owen Swift on the bench. Obviously support as a coach alongside his playing minutes, but will not feature this game, and I presume across the weekend as well. but it doesn't look like he will be required because they're turning on the star as Jamil Khan, searching for that hat-trick. Who would you have tipped to be the top goal scorer prior to the season kicking off, Rickin?
That's a very tough question. I thought maybe Jamil,
He certainly,
or maybe David D.
Oscar Mulgrew doesn't get the angle, almost caught in two minds whether to pass or shoot. And as anyone that loves this sport will know, a second's hesitation as to your intention will mean that you're not able to engage either. Yeah, I had predicted Naglis Montvillas of Villa Rockets Lions, but already I have to question that assessment because he was opting to play in the centre in that first game. Maybe that's because they're without Mason Hindley, who is their predominant central player, and when he's reintroduced we'll see Naglis revert back to the familiar wide role. But yeah, any one of these Teesside Steel players, as Thomas Met desperately looks to get off the mark, maybe a second attempt now, just wide of the right hand post. It's fairly relentless in terms of pressure, and you're seeing how wide the Teesside Steel setup is, but Forest do well to prevent their fourth. Isaac Murray into the box. Oscar Mulgrew at the back post, just wide of the left-hand post. Toby Maurice would have had it covered, but they're finding those pockets, they're finding those channels in the opposition defence. It just needed a little bit more power on the initial delivery from Isaac Murray to give Oscar Mulgrew the space on that near post. I hope they're not too disappointed by this scoreline and or potential result, Forest, because they've shown something in this game that I don't think I've seen in their game before.
Yeah, if I was Forest, I'd be very happy with this performance. I would not be disappointed at all. Many people have tipped Teesside Steel as the potential champions come May.
I will reiterate, in my predictions I had Teesside Steel finishing top and Nottingham Forest finishing bottom. And if this is the difference in quality between a top performer and someone towards the bottom, this is going to be one of the most competitive divisions to date. Nottingham Forest finished 11th last season, only managing 3 wins across the entirety of the season. They got a historic double over Manchester United, and they also beat Bournemouth in the opening weekend, whereby Riley Priestley scored that 7-goal haul. He will be delighted he's off the mark so early in 25-26.
Yeah, those 2 big results against Manchester United last year, that they were massive, considering the strength Man United had in their team last season.
If you look at Nottingham Forest's fixtures on paper, and I'm always typically hesitant to assume based on previous form, you would say they have the opportunity to get points in game week 1. Next up for them at 2:10, Altrincham. Tomorrow they play Norwich City and Hull and East Yorkshire. So if they play like this against opponents that aren't quite as formidable as Teesside Steel, there's no reason why they can't come away from game week 1 on a real high. Oscar Mulgrew doesn't engage, closed by Finley Cooper. Has to drop off, surely a 2-on-1 in Teesside Steel's favour. It's just those moments of discipline that they need to ensure. Isaac Murray, nice pick off from Jamil Khan. No one there to receive it. Looks slightly frustrated, Oscar Mulgrew. can see the scoreline from Court A. A very early statement of intent from Nottinghamshire. They are 4-0 up against Hull and East Yorkshire. They are looking to secure an immediate return to the top flight. Something I challenged of them is to turn their typical defensive stability into attacking proficiency, and a 4-0 scoreline against a very good defensive outfit in Hull and East Yorkshire. There's few better ways to kickstart a campaign.
Nottinghamshire definitely want to come back up to the Prem.
Yeah, without question. But what we saw from Leeds Dynamo's earlier, Rickin, you would suspect that they want to be fighting for one of those automatic places as well. We know Teesside Steel, Villa Rockets, Manchester United, they all have wins to their name already in this division.
Yeah, and even Norwich.
Of course, they were surprise packages this morning against GBG Saracens, a team in which many have tipped to be one to watch, comprised of some real talented young players marking their debuts in the National League. But they was given a real reminder as to the quality that teams in this division possess.
Yeah, they would want to come back up straight away as well.
I don't disagree, but it was always the question how they adapted to life without Henry Barnard and Thomas Donaher, two key players for them last season. But they've developed their squad of players. I don't think they've brought anyone in. And I like it when that happens, when a team sees players depart them and then look to upskill rather than recruit. The same can be applied to Nottingham Forest, who have the same core that finished the 24-25 season. Obviously, as Riley Priest is going to attack that back post, I think it's the right method from Riley Priestley. But had he stayed in reverse and arced his run, anticipated a little bit more, I can't fault it really. I'm a big advocate for staying in reverse, but I understand why he drove onto that, but he needed to anticipate it, which sadly wasn't there.
Rogers needs to work on the angle of the ball a little bit better.
It's hard when the opposition central player is Oscar Mulgrew, just doesn't give you the angles to capitalise, as Thomas Met pickpocketed by Ben Rogers beautifully. But I'll have a conversation with Forest following this, just to understand where the likes of Jack Bosanquet and Gary Meakin are. Players that give them a little bit more depth and experienced. And assuming that they're going to be present in other games in the 25-26 season, from what I've seen, they'll be absolutely fine come season's end.
Can he work a corner?
The ball is still in play. Strong play from Thomas Met. Almost too aggressive. Yeah. Definitely the right decision that from Ian Harley. He hesitated, but it was too aggressive from Thomas Met. Just needed to exhibit a little bit more finesse.
He could have actually let that ball roll out and got a corner out of it. I don't know why he kept it in.
Just a whisker wide of the left-hand post from Oscar Mulgrew, looking for his brace. It's those goal kicks that have let them down. If you can't clear the press, you're under immediate pressure. It's a very hard ask when you're seeing these Teesside Steel players, certainly the three outfield ones, committing themselves so far forward. Even now, look at they're all itching, ready to go. Goes down to Riley Priestley. I think he needed to use his front bumper there maybe just a question of decision making as well. But again, applying the context, very encouraged with what I'm seeing.
He's done that a few times since he's come on in the second half, Thomas.
It's hard to get up to the pace of a fixture. And I can almost forgive a lot of these players, irrelevant of who you compete for, in the opening 1 or 2 games, because getting the summer out your system, getting back up to sharpness, takes time. Isaac Murray just committing forward there. Almost a 4-out fashion is something that I've been calling for a long time. It's nice that he's there as an option in attack. And you're seeing they're completely swarming Forest here. Nice ball from Thomas Met into the 180 of Jamil Khan off the back wheel of Ben Rogers. That would have been a fantastic hat-trick. Nice ball from Thomas Met. Just need to be a little bit disciplined and organised here. Again, we referenced it in the earlier game between Dynamos and Baggies, how, whilst you don't want to talk about it in the first game on Gameweek 1, goal difference will play a deciding factor in certain positions, as Oscar Mulgrew looks to make it 4. So if and where possible, Forest are going to want to minimise the damage, and they're doing so brilliantly.
They've had an outstanding game, Forest.
They really have. Thomas Met just trying to get a grasp of that ball. Now a breakaway for Rogers. Needed Riley Priestley to be a little bit quicker using that front bumper. I think Nottinghamshire have gone 5-0 up against Hull and East Yorkshire.
That is a statement of intent, isn't it?
I think that's an understatement, Rickin. Already they're looking to set that benchmark that everyone aspires to reach. Nice ball, Jamil Khan, 180 into Thomas Met. I don't think he was expecting it. I think he almost anticipated a direct strike at goal, and now a potential break on if Riley Priestley can be positive. Nice in the control, but it goes completely back, gives possession back to Thomas Met, and that's just that decision making again. How what could have been a really promising attack is now turning into an immediate defence. Confirmation of that scoreline on court A. Final 2 minutes. Ben Rogers over to Riley Priestley. That's a lovely ball. Combination football into Riley Priestley. That would have been a sensational finish. Finding those tiny pockets and areas. That is one of the best passages of play I've ever seen from Nottingham Forest. There is so many positives from this. And arguably, you would say that based on relative expectation, they will come away happier with this result than that of Teesside Steel. Final minute, Rickin. Player of the match, if you would, please.
This is a bit of a controversial one, despite Jamil scoring 2 goals. But I'm going to go for Ben Rogers. I think he's just been outstanding in this game. He assisted with that goal.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really disagree with it. If you was to ask the viewing audience, I think a lot of them would put the praise on the likes of Ben Rogers, Toby Maurice, because the levels they're performing at far exceed anyone's expectations, as there's a little lapse in concentration there. Obviously, Teesside still, they've done the job. They're going to come away with the 3 points, which will please them greatly, but there is stuff to assess. That's 2 in quick succession there from Ben Rogers. You can now experience the curse of the commentator, as I so often do. But positives all round. Teesside still, job done. Some lovely expansive football, just getting their sharpness up. But with Forest, they look revitalised, they look organised, they look dangerous on the break. Ingredients that they will need across the entirety of the season, as Ian Harley blows the whistle to signal full time. It does finish Nottingham Forest 1, Teesside still 3, but there is a lot of stories in that scoreline. Thank you to all that have tuned in. Next up on Court B, Leeds Dynamos against Manchester United.